And good afternoon to you all. This is your show, Líderes del Futuro, here on KBBF 89.1 FM and on the web at kbbf.org. My name is Rafael Vasquez Guzman, and we're going to get started with some information. One of the things that our communities are a little bit confused about is this issue of banks and whether or not all of the banks are going to have issues with funding. One of the things that we understand for sure is that the FDIC is guaranteeing the funds for up to $250,000. Now, one of the important pieces of information that we want to make sure that our community understands is there is a very big difference between a credit union like Community First Credit Union and for sure Redwood Credit Union in Sonoma County. They're also in Marin County. They are also in San Francisco and other places. And banks, whether it is Bank of America, Bank of the West, Wells Fargo, for example, or other banks. And the misunderstanding, as we are finally, some of us becoming more comfortable with, is the understanding that banks have investors. And those investors expect people to, again, create some type of benefit for the investment. And what we saw with Silicon Valley Bank is that all of these investors put their money in there with the goal of, again, making a profit. And now that there is a possible loss of funding, a lot of people have been confused. And the understanding again here is for people who have less than $250,000, their investment is secure because it's guaranteed by the FDIC, which is part of the federal government. And the reason why sometimes banks go bankrupt or end up in a financial situation as Silicon Valley Bank ended up in has a lot to do, again, because investors want to make as much money out of their investment. And as a result of that, some of the banks will go and make risky investments. We saw that during the financial crisis of 2008, where there were loans for homes, for example, where we know now that individuals were not going to be able to keep up with the payments. Their interest in those payments was a variable interest, which means they may have started at 6-7% interest, but eventually it went up to maybe 12 and 15, and their monthly payment went from maybe $2,000 to $3,000. I know of one situation in Sonoma County where a gentleman didn't really have the paperwork to demonstrate that he could keep up with his payments, and the bank still loaned him the money. And he was able to make 1 or 2 payments of $7,000 on a property. And after that, the bank kept the property. And that is abusive behavior from banks, but that's how they take those type of risks and make money. And this is important for us to understand. Some of those investments are also investments that are questionable for some of us. And for example, Wells Fargo is one of those banks that in the past has invested a lot of money in private prisons. And as a result of that, they have made a lot of money. They used to also invest in private prisons that contracted with immigration. And again, as a result of that, they made a lot of money for their investors, but at the suffering of other individuals. The difference between a bank and a credit union then, and again, this is important for us to keep in mind, is that a credit union has a specific bylaws. And we know that organizations like Redwood Credit Union that serves multiple counties in the Bay Area, they are required to invest the funds locally. And as a result of that, be more careful as well on the type of investments that they make. about 95% of the money that is invested in, again, home loans and car loans and small business loans. And as a result of that, the community credit union, right, Redwood Credit Union, is taking care of its own community. There are no investors to please, right? The goal is not to make a few people rich from the investment, but it's about providing for the community in general. And that is one of the biggest differences between credit unions and banks. When I do trainings on behalf of Líderes del Futuro for parents specifically and kids in Spanish, when we do those trainings about the different accounts such as checking, savings, money market, IRAs, CDs, so on and so forth, we again teach people to look at the many ways that they can invest and save their money. And I often use Redwood Credit Union as the individual institution, not because they pay, not because they donate money to Líderes del Futuro, but because the goal here is to educate about a local organization that, again, supports its community. Redwood Credit Union, a lot of people don't understand, is a nonprofit organization, technically, that belongs to the community. Just like Líderes del Futuro is a nonprofit organization on one side, and then we have our show here on KBBF. But it's important for us to understand that. Do we want to support that? The other piece that we have to make sure that we understand when we talk about banks is that sometimes banks will charge us specific fees for having our money with them. And I will always remember this young man that used to work for a local bank. It's actually a national bank, but it was a local office. And he said that he remembered one day when he showed up and there was this gentleman who couldn't speak English, and he went to the bank and he said, he wanted to cash his check. And in the process of cashing the check, he ran a check on the whole account. And he said, I noticed here that we are taking a certain amount of money every month. I think it was $10 for one thing, $5 or so for another thing. And he said, why are you paying those fees? You don't run a business. You don't have this other investments. And he says, I don't know. I came in and a gentleman said, can we sign you up for this? And can we sign you up for that? I didn't understand half of what was said. And as a result of that, and I don't really keep an eye on my monthly reports, which again, it's something that we all should do with the credit cards and or monthly statements from the bank. And so the young man went to talk to his manager because this fees had been charged for a couple of years. And he was hoping that he would be able to get some of that money back to this gentleman because this fee should have never been added to his account. And it was interesting for him because after presenting what he saw as a problem to this manager, she reminded him that it's not his job, it wasn't his job to protect the customer, but his job was to make as much money for the company. And as a result of that, he had to go back. He had to explain this to the gentleman that he was able to make the change now if he wanted to, but he couldn't reimburse him the hundreds and hundreds of dollars that the bank basically had stolen from him. And as a result of the fact that they saw that he was very honest, the manager of the bank no longer trusted in him to be invested in making a profit at the expense of all of these poor individuals who bank at that location. And subsequently, because this individual actually has a conscience, he actually left the bank because he couldn't live with the fact that this was happening. And I say that because, again, credit unions are institutions that are supposed to work for you. that are supposed to collaborate for when you need to buy a vehicle, for when you need to buy a home, when you need to start a business. And they may be more strict about the documentation that they need from you. But again, they are not there to make investors happy and make investors wealthier. They are there to make sure that as a community, we all are elevated, right? And so this is a reminder. Again, if you have less than $250,000, the FDIC has said, hey, we guarantee that money if you have it in checking, savings, CDs, so on and so forth. But again, this is why credit unions are wonderful institutions. And if you have your money in a bank, it's your right to keep it there. But you can also go and close your account at the bank and move it to a credit union because, again, priorities are different in these institutions. So we wanted to take a moment and just let you know about that. And the other piece that we're going to talk about here briefly before we go to our next piece of today's show is that Líderes del Futuro Avanzando has now released its scholarships. You can go to our Facebook page, DACA Sonoma County, DACA. We have also shared the bilingual flyers with Hillsburg School District, with Windsor School District, with Santa Rosa City Schools, and others. The Dr. Maria Hess scholarship is for graduating high school seniors who are Latinx, who are going to pursue a degree in psychology, or college students from Santa Rosa Junior College or Sonoma State who are Latinx and who are also pursuing a degree in psychology. At the moment, we have 2 scholarships that are going to be $500 each. The Mike Garcia scholarship is for graduating seniors from high schools who are going to pursue any major. They just happen to be Latinx and undocumented. We have 2 scholarships for that. And soon we will upload this scholarship information to our actual website. We're making changes to that website. So thank you for your patience with these changes. You can also go to our website, lideresdelfuturo.org, and you can donate for the scholarship program, for the Luis Vasquez summer program, and for our DACA immigration program. And also we have the Leo Jimenez Carreño Scholarship, a young man who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago when he was still a teenager. And as a result of that, there is a scholarship for high school graduating Latinx youth from Sonoma County, and immigration status is not important. So we invite the community to start looking for those flyers everywhere, share those flyers everywhere. And also, if you would like to contribute to those scholarships, you can go to lideresdelfuturo.org, and in the donate button, you can make a donation, a one-time donation or a monthly donation. So we thank you for paying attention to this. We invite you to share this information with the community.